Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Raymond Carter. I am 34 years old. I was reviewing inventory reports when my phone buzzed with a notification from Instagram. Normally, I would have ignored it, but the preview showed my wife's profile picture. She almost never posted, maybe once every few months, so I clicked it. There she was, arms wrapped around a man, his chin resting on her shoulder, both smiling like they had just won something. The caption read, "Home is where the heart is." I knew that face. Deshaun Pierce, the ex-boyfriend she had dated for 3 years before we met. The one she had sworn was ancient history when his name came up last Thanksgiving. The same man who had been liking her post for the past 6 months, leaving comments like, "Looking good," and "Miss those days." The photo had been up for 40 minutes and already had 18 likes. Her cousin Bria had commented with 3 heart eyes emojis. Her co-worker from the call center wrote, "Yes, Queen." Someone named Vanessa wrote, "Finally." I took a screenshot, then another screenshot of the comment section. Then I opened her profile and scrolled back through her photos. 3 weeks ago, a picture at a riverside park near downtown Nashville. The same jacket he was wearing in this new photo. 2 months ago, a coffee shop photo. Just the corner of a table, a pastry, and her smiling over a mug. But a man's arm was visible at the edge of the frame. A masculine hand. A watch I did not recognize. My desk phone rang. I let go to voicemail. I needed to think, not react. Here was what I knew. We had been married for 4 years, together for 6. I paid for her car, a 2019 Civic, title in my name, because her credit score had been terrible when we bought it. I paid $3,200 for the engagement ring. I bought her a diamond tennis bracelet for our 2nd anniversary, gold earrings for her birthday last year, and a laptop when hers died during her online certification program. I opened my phone's notes application and started typing. Not angry rambling. Facts, dates, amounts, and receipts I could find later. My supervisor, Maurice Holloway, walked past my cubicle and glanced in. He said, "You good? You look intense." I said, "Just organizing some personal files." He nodded. He said, "All right. Let me know if you need to shift your workload today." I said, "I am fine, thanks." I went back to my phone. The photo now had 24 likes. Her best friend, Selena Price, commented, "About time you followed your heart." About time. I screenshotted that too. Then I texted my wife, Nicole, "Working late tonight. Do not wait up for dinner." She replied immediately, "Okay. Ordering Thai. Do you want me to save you some?" I wrote, "No thanks. I will grab something here." The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then she wrote, "Is everything okay?" I wrote, "Yes. Just busy. Talk later." I put my phone face down and went back to my computer. But I was not looking at inventory reports anymore. I was searching online listings for lockboxes, researching what items legally belonged to me in Tennessee, and checking which documentation I would need for what I was about to do. By the time I left work, the post had 63 likes and 12 comments, mostly from her side of the family and friends, all supportive, all celebrating. I stopped at a copy shop on my way home. I had files to organize, and suddenly I had the motivation to get them sorted fast. The night shift attendant barely looked up when I asked for access to their scanner and color printer. That was perfect. I did not need an audience. When I pulled into our driveway at 11 o'clock that night, the living room lights were still on. I sat in my truck for a minute, staring at that light. 4 years of marriage, 6 years together, and she had just announced to everyone who mattered to her that her heart belonged somewhere else. I grabbed my briefcase, now full of printed documentation, and headed inside. She was on the couch watching a reality show, her phone face down on the cushion next to her. She said, "Hey, you look exhausted." I said, "Rough day. Long day." She said, "Do you want to watch something together first?" I looked at her. Same woman I had married. Same smile. Same voice that had said, "I do," in front of 100 people. I said, "Maybe tomorrow. I am beat." She shrugged and turned back to the television. I went upstairs, set my briefcase in the guest room, and closed the door. Then I opened my laptop and got to work. If Nicole wanted to make public declarations about where her heart was, that was her choice. But she was about to find out that choices come with price tags, and I had all the receipts. I woke up before her like always. 5:30, alarm silent, so it would not wake her. I got dressed, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and the folder I had started the night before. The Instagram post was still up. 92 likes now. More comments overnight. Her Aunt Lorraine wrote, "So happy for you." Her high school friend tagged 3 other people with crying laughing emojis. I heard Nicole's footsteps upstairs. Shower running. Hair dryer. The usual routine. She came down at 7 o'clock wearing the earrings I had bought her. Gold hoops. $340 at the jewelry store downtown. She had cried when I gave them to her. She had said they were too expensive, that I should not have bought them. She said, "Morning. You are up early." I said, "Cannot sleep. A lot on my mind." She leaned against the counter, sipping coffee, watching me. She said, "Work stuff?" I said, "Among other things." She said, "Do you want to talk about it?" I looked directly at her. I said, "Not yet." She frowned slightly but did not push. She said, "I am meeting Avery for lunch today. That new place on 5th Street. Avery Knox, her friend from the gym. The one who had been encouraging her to live her best life for the past year. I had met Avery twice. I had not liked her either time. I said, "Have fun." She said, "You are being weird." She set down her mug. She said, "What is going on?" I said, "Just tired like I said last night." She studied me for another moment, then shrugged. She said, "Okay, I will be back around 3 o'clock. After she left, I went to the garage. Everything I had bought her over the years was cataloged in my head, but I needed physical proof for what came next. The tennis bracelet was in her jewelry box upstairs. The laptop was on her desk in the spare bedroom. The car was the big one, though. I went to my filing cabinet and pulled the title to the Civic, my name only. Purchased outright 2 years ago when her previous car died, and she had no savings to replace it. I photographed everything. The title, the receipt from the jeweler, the online order confirmations for the smaller items, credit card statements showing the charges. I uploaded them all to a cloud folder, then backed them up on a thumb drive. My phone rang. My brother, Khalil, asked immediately, "Did you see her Instagram?" I said, "I saw it." He said, "Man, that is messed up. You know who that guy is?" I said, "Her ex, Deshawn, and she just posted that publicly with that caption." Khalil's voice went tight. He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Handle it." He said, "That is not an answer." I said, "It is the only answer you are getting right now. I will call you later." He said, "Do not do anything stupid." I said, "I will not do anything stupid, but I am also not doing nothing." By noon, I had every major purchase itemized, photographed, and verified with receipts. I created a spreadsheet listing each item, purchase date, amount spent, and current estimated value. The doorbell rang at 1 o'clock. I was not expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw my father-in-law, Reginald. "Great." I opened the door. I said, "Reginald." He said, "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He walked into the living room, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. He said, "I saw the post." I said, "Seems like everyone did." He said, "Look, I do not know what is going on between you two, but that photo, that caption, it is not right. I wanted you to know that Denise, and I do not approve. Whatever she is doing, we did not raise her to treat marriage like that." I nodded slowly. I said, "I appreciate you saying that." He said, "Are you two going to work this out?" I said, "That depends entirely on her. But between you and me, when someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. She just told the entire internet where her heart is. I am just deciding how to respond." He looked at me for a long moment. He said, "You are calmer than I expected." I said, "I am plenty angry. I'm just not stupid." He left 20 minutes later, after some awkward small talk about the weather and his golf game. But before he walked out, he turned back and said, "Whatever you decide to do, I will not blame you." After he left, I opened Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and 3 local buy and sell groups. It was time to turn documentation into action. I started typing the first listing, Honda Civic 2019, silver, 35,000 miles, excellent condition, clean title. Then I added the part that would change everything. Vehicle used by soon-to-be ex-wife who decided her ex-boyfriend was more interesting than our marriage. Posted their reunion photo on Instagram, with "home is where the heart is" as the caption. Clean title, all maintenance records included. She can find her own ride to see him now. $12,500, or best offer. Marriage over. She chose him. Everything must go. I posted it to Facebook Marketplace, 3 local buy and sell groups, and Craigslist. Then I moved to the next item. Engagement ring, white gold, 14 karat, 1 carat center stone. Original appraisal included. Bought this for a marriage that lasted until she decided nostalgia was more valuable than commitment. Appraised at $3,200. Will accept best reasonable offer. The tennis bracelet, the gold earrings, the laptop. Each one got its own post with photos and a brutally honest description. I did not curse. I did not rant. I just stated facts with enough context that anyone reading knew exactly why these items were for sale. By 3 o'clock, I had 12 posts live across different platforms. By 3:30, the shares started. My phone buzzed with a message request on Facebook from someone I did not know. Dude, I'm sorry about what happened. That is rough. Is the bracelet still available? Another notification. Someone shared my car post to a group called Nashville Area Drama. Then another share to a divorce support group. The comments started rolling in. This man said, "I am done playing games." She really thought posting that was a good idea. The way he documented everything. King behavior. I will take the earrings if they are still available. My wife would love them. And honestly, I respect the energy here. A legitimate offer came through at 3:45. Someone named Quentin asked to see the car that evening. I scheduled it for 7 o'clock. Another offer came in on the ring. A woman named Marissa asked if we could meet at a coffee shop so her jeweler could verify authenticity. I sent her the appraisal documents and agreed to meet Saturday morning. By 4 o'clock, my posts had been shared over 200 times combined. People were tagging their friends, commenting with popcorn emojis, debating in the comment sections whether I was justified or petty. I did not care about the debate. I cared about the offers. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call, another unknown number. I silenced my phone and went back to responding to genuine buyers. At 4:30, my phone started buzzing continuously. Text messages from numbers I did not recognize. Voicemails piling up. I checked one. A woman from a local news station said she had seen my posts and wanted to speak with me about the story. I deleted it. Another voicemail came from her sister, Janelle. "What is wrong with you? Take those posts down right now. You are humiliating her. Call me back." Not a chance. At 5 o'clock, I got a text from my coworker, Anthony. "Just saw your car listing in my neighborhood group. Someone shared it with 'This is how you handle disrespect. Stay strong, man." The messages from buyers kept coming. Someone offered $3,000 cash for the ring. No questions asked. Could meet tonight. Someone else wanted the bracelet and earrings as a set. Offered $800. At 5:45, my phone rang with Nicole's number. I let it ring 3 times, then answered. She said immediately, breathless, "Where are you?" I said, "At home." She said, "Did you post my car for sale online?" I said, "Correction. I posted my car for sale online. The one with my name on the title." She said, "Are you insane? People are sending me screenshots. My entire family is calling me. My mother is crying." I said, "Calm as concrete. Funny. When you posted that photo with Deshaun, you did not seem concerned about how your family might react." She said, "That is completely different." I said, "You are right. Your post was about feelings. Mine is about assets. Much more straightforward." She said, "Take them down right now." I said, "I cannot do that. I already have a buyer scheduled to see the car at 7. A man named Quentin seems genuine. Offered $12,000 cash. I am not wasting his time." She said, "You cannot sell my car." I said, "Again, my car, my name, my money that bought it. You just drove it. That arrangement is ending." She was either crying or hyperventilating. It was hard to tell over the phone. She said, "You are doing this to punish me." I said, "I am doing this because you made your choice public. I am just making the consequences equally public. You wanted everyone to know where your heart is. Now everyone knows what that decision costs." She said, "I'm coming home right now. Do not you dare meet with anyone." I said, "I will be here. But Quentin is still coming at 7. You might want to hurry." I hung up and checked my posts again. The car listing alone had been shared over 400 times. Comments were in the hundreds. Some people call me petty, most call me a legend, and everyone watched the drama unfold. At 6:30, I heard the Civic pull into the driveway. The front door opened, and Nicole stormed into the living room where I was seated with my laptop, still responding to messages. Her face was red, mascara smudged under her eyes. She said, "Take them down now." I did not look up from my screen. I said, "Quentin just confirmed he will be here in 20 minutes. She said, "Take them down." I said, "No." She grabbed my laptop. I let her. She stared at the screen, scrolling through the messages, 53 unread. Offers, questions, people asking for updates on what had sold. She whispered, "This is insane. People are messaging me." My boss saw it. My Aunt Lorraine called my mother asking what is happening. "Do you understand what you have done?" I stood up and took the laptop back from her hands. I said, "I understand exactly what I have done. The question is, do you understand what you did?" She said, "It was just a photo." I said, "A photo with your ex-boyfriend and a caption saying, 'Home is where the heart is,' posted publicly where everyone we know could see it. Just a photo." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshot. 92 likes, 15 comments. I said, "Your cousin said finally." Your friend said, "About time you followed your heart." So tell me, what exactly was I supposed to think? She said, "You could have talked to me." I said, "Like you talked to me before posting it? Like you mentioned you had been seeing Deshaun again, meeting him at parks and coffee shops, letting him back into your life while wearing the earrings I bought you." Her mouth opened, then closed. She had not expected me to know about the other meetings. She said, "How did you?" I said, "Your Instagram is not as private as you think. And when you post someone's arm in a photo, maybe make sure they're not wearing a watch I have never seen before." She sat down on the couch, head in her hands. She said, "It is not what it looks like." I said, "Then what is it? Explain it to me. Use small words, so I will understand." She said, "We reconnected a few months ago. We were just talking, catching up. It was not physical. We did not do anything wrong." I said, "You posted a photo that announced to everyone who matters in your life that your heart belongs with him. That is not nothing. That is a declaration." She said, "I did not mean it like that. It was just a caption." I said, "Words mean things. When you say home is where the heart is while wrapped around another man, people draw conclusions. Your family drew conclusions. Your friends drew conclusions. I drew conclusions. And you know what? You did not take it down. Even now, it is still up." She pulled out her phone and opened Instagram. Her hand shook as she deleted the post. I said, "Too late. Screenshots exist. The internet does not forget. Neither do I." The doorbell rang. "Quentin, right on time." She said quickly, "Do not answer that." I walked to the door and opened it. A man in his mid-40s stood on the porch wearing a ball cap and work boots. He nodded. He said, "You are Raymond with the Civic?" I said, "That is me. It is in the driveway." Nicole appeared behind me. She said, "It is not for sale anymore. There has been a mistake." Quentin looked between us, picking up on the tension. He said, "The post said it was available." I said, "It is. The title is inside. We could take a look at it first." She hissed, "Stop this right now." Quentin shifted uncomfortably. He said, "If this is a bad time," I said, "It is not. Give me 2 minutes." I went to my office and grabbed the title, maintenance records, and the spare key. When I came back, she stood in front of Quentin with her arms crossed. She said, "This is my car. He cannot sell it." I held up the title. I said, "It is in my name. Bought and paid for by me." She drove it, but it was never transferred to her. Quentin examined the title, then looked at her. He said, "Ma'am, if his name is on the title, it is his car legally." I said, "We are married, and I am filing for divorce Monday morning, so we will not be married much longer." Nicole's face went pale. She said, "You are not serious." I said, "I am dead serious. I already spoke with an attorney Friday afternoon. The papers will be filed first thing Monday." Quentin cleared his throat and said, "I'm going to look at the car now, if that is okay." I tossed him the keys. I said, "Check everything. It has new tires from March. Oil changed last month. All records are in that folder." While Quentin inspected the car, Nicole followed me back inside. She said, "You spoke to a lawyer?" I said, "Yes. Yesterday, right after I saw your photo. I made an appointment, went in during my lunch break, and discussed options. Turns out when your spouse publicly declares their heart belongs somewhere else, you have grounds." She said, "I want to fix this. We can go to counseling." I said, No, she said. You will not even try? I said, you did not try. You made a choice. You posted it. You celebrated it with everyone except me. Now you deal with the outcome. She said, what about everything we built together? I gestured around the room. I said, you mean everything I bought that you used? Because that is what this house is full of. My money, my furniture, my name on the lease. You contributed what exactly? Your part-time job at the yoga studio that barely covers your spending. She said, that is not fair. I said, what is not fair is finding out my wife's heart belongs to someone else through Instagram. That is not fair. I pointed toward the driveway where Quentin was checking under the hood. This is just consequences. Quentin knocked on the door and said, I will take it. $12,000 cash, like I said. Can you meet me at the bank tomorrow morning so I can withdraw it? Does 10 o'clock work for you? I said, perfect. We shook hands. He left. She stood in the doorway, watching the taillights disappear. She said, you actually sold it? I said, yes. She said, how am I supposed to get to work? I said, the bus runs every 30 minutes. There is a stop 2 blocks from here. Or call Deshaun. I am sure he would love to help. She turned to face me, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Not of me, but of the situation she had created. She said, what happens now? I said, now I keep selling. The ring is being evaluated Saturday by a buyer. The bracelet and earrings are pending. Everything with my name attached gets liquidated. You should start packing your things. She said, where am I supposed to go? I said, that is your problem to solve. You chose your path. Walk it. I went upstairs to the guest room and closed the door. My phone was still buzzing with notifications, messages, and offers, and I answered every single one. Saturday morning, I met Marissa at a coffee shop on 12th Avenue. She brought her jeweler, an older man named Mr. Coleman, who examined the ring under a loupe for 10 minutes while I drank black coffee and answered emails on my phone. Mr. Coleman said, it is authentic, quality stone, excellent setting. I would appraise it at $3,400 at current market value. Marissa handed me a cashier's check for $3,000. She said, I am sorry about what happened to you. My daughter is getting engaged next month. This ring deserves a better story going forward. I said, it will. I shook her hand and left. When I got home, Nicole was sitting at the kitchen table with her mother, Denise, and her sister, Janelle. An intervention. Predictable. Denise said, we need to talk. I said, there is nothing to talk about. I walked past them toward the stairs. Janelle stood up and blocked my path. She said, you embarrassed her in front of everyone. Family, friends, co-workers. Do you have any idea what you have done? I said, I know exactly what I've done. The question is, do you know what she did? Did she show you the photo she posted? Denise's face tightened. She said, we saw it. It was inappropriate, but it did not warrant this level of retaliation. I said, retaliation? I sold items that belonged to me. Last time I checked, that is not illegal. Janelle snapped. You humiliated her publicly. I said, she humiliated our marriage publicly first. I just responded in kind. Do not start fires if you cannot handle smoke. Nicole came down the stairs, eyes red from crying. She said, can we please just talk alone? I said, we already talked. You know where I stand. She said, I deleted the photo. I blocked Deshaun. I will do whatever you want. I said, you blocked him after you got caught. That is not remorse. That is damage control. Denise stepped forward and said, she made a mistake. Marriage is about forgiveness. I said, marriage is also about respect, loyalty, and not publicly declaring your heart belongs to your ex. She broke those rules, not me. I went upstairs to pack more of my things. I had already signed a lease on a small house across town. 2 bedrooms, decent yard, move-in ready by Wednesday. The landlord, Leonard Bowman, did not ask many questions when I explained I needed a place fast. He just ran my credit, which was excellent, and handed over the keys. By Sunday afternoon, most of my clothes were packed. My electronics, important documents, everything that mattered, were boxed and ready in my truck. Nicole watched from the bedroom doorway as I worked. She said quietly, you are actually leaving. I said Tuesday. Movers come Wednesday for the furniture I am taking. She said, which furniture? I said, the couch I bought before we got married, the desk from my office, the television from the guest room. Anything with my name on the receipt. She said, you are taking the couch? I said, unless you have $1,200 to buy it for me. She did not. Monday morning, I filed the divorce papers. By Monday afternoon, she was served at work. Janelle called me screaming about how I had embarrassed Nicole at the yoga studio in front of clients. I said, calm and steady, she could have been served at home, but she was not there when the process server came by. That is not my problem. She said, you are being vindictive. I said, I am being efficient. There is a difference. By Tuesday, the remaining items had sold. The bracelet went to a woman named Naomi for $650. The earrings went to a buyer named Keisha for $280. The laptop went to a college student named Dorian for $400. Every transaction was documented. Every penny was deposited into my personal account that I had open Monday morning. Wednesday morning, the movers arrived at 8 o'clock. Nicole was already gone, staying at her parents' house. That made things easier. They loaded my furniture, my boxes, everything I was taking. The house looked empty when they finished. I did one final walkthrough, checking closets and cabinets. In the bedroom, I found a printed copy of the Instagram photo tucked into her jewelry box, the one she had deleted. She had printed it before taking it down. I left it there. Let her keep the memory. At my new place, I spent Wednesday unpacking. Thursday, I went back to work. Maurice asked how I was holding up. I said, better than expected. He said, if you need a day, take it. I said, work helps. Later, Anthony stopped by my desk and said, your posts are still circulating. Saw one shared in a neighborhood group last night. I said, good. Let it circulate. Maybe it will teach someone something. He said, you are calm. I said, calm is not the same as okay. Friday afternoon, my attorney, Patrice Bell, called. She said, her attorney reached out. They want to discuss terms. I said, what terms? I want nothing from her. She can keep whatever is in her name, which is basically nothing. I want the divorce finalized, and I want to move on. Patrice said, she is asking for spousal support. I laughed. I said, based on what? Her part-time yoga job? We were married 4 years. She contributed nothing financially, and she is the one who blew up the marriage. Tell her attorney good luck. Patrice said, understood. This should be straightforward. I will keep you updated. That weekend, her brother Khalil texted me again. He wrote, I do not blame you for what you did. She messed up, but she is my sister, so I had to try. Good luck with everything. I wrote back, I appreciate that. You have always been decent. Sunday evening, I was grilling burgers in my new backyard when Khalil came over with a six-pack. He said, how you feeling? I said, relieved, like I finally stopped carrying something heavy. He said, the post died down yet? I said, mostly. I still get the occasional message from people sharing their own stories. It is wild how many people have gone through similar things. He said, you became an example, man. That line, marriage over. She chose him. Everything must go. People keep repeating it. I flipped a burger and said, I just wanted my stuff back. I did not plan on going viral. He said, but you did. And you handled it with clarity. I said, it was not cold. I was angry. Still am sometimes. But I was not going to let that anger make me stupid. Khalil asked, did Deshaun ever reach out? I said no. He disappeared the second things got messy. Turns out he only wanted her when she was safely married to someone else. The moment she became available and complicated, he vanished. Khalil shook his head. He said, she lost everything chasing nothing. I said, that is usually how it works. We ate burgers, drank beer, and talked about everything except her. It felt good. It felt normal. Later that night, I got a final message from Nicole. I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I blocked the number. She was right. I did deserve better. And now I had the chance to find it. 8 weeks later, I sat in a courthouse conference room. Patrice had the final papers spread across the table. Across from us was Nicole and her attorney, a woman named Colette Marsh. Nicole looked different, thinner, tired. The gold hoop earrings were gone. So was the confidence. The judge, Whitaker, reviewed the settlement. No spousal support. No shared assets because there were none to share. Clean split. She keeps her clothes and personal items. He keeps everything else because everything else is his. The judge asked, any objections? Colette looked at Nicole. Nicole shook her head. The judge said, then this marriage is dissolved. Papers will be filed today, effective immediately. And that was it. For years, ended in 12 minutes. Outside the courthouse, Nicole caught up to me. She said, "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" I said, "There is nothing left to say." She said, "I need you to know I regret everything. Deshawn was a fantasy. You were genuine, and I destroyed it." I said, "You did." She said, "Do you hate me?" I looked at her and considered the question. I said, "No, I do not hate you. I just do not care anymore." She said, "That is worse." Tears formed. She said, "I deserve that." I said, "Yes, you do." I walked to my truck. Khalil was waiting, leaning against the passenger door. He said, "Done?" I said, "Done." We drove back to my place. The house felt like home now. I had painted the living room, bought new furniture with the money from selling what she had been using, and had a small gathering last weekend. Friends from work, a couple of guys from the gym. Normal life. My phone buzzed. A text from Quentin, the man who bought the car. "Just wanted to say thanks again. My daughter loves it. She passed her driving test yesterday. You gave us a good deal despite everything." I smiled and texted back, "Glad it is being appreciated." Khalil cracked open a beer and handed me one. He said, "So what now?" I said, "Now I work. I live. I move forward. Maybe I will date eventually. Maybe not. There is no rush." A few nights later, I walked into the grocery store near my new house. The cashier, a woman named Tashrina with a quiet smile, rang up my items and said, "I think I have seen you before." I said, "Probably." She said, "You just moved into the neighborhood?" People were talking, something about a car listing that made my sister laugh so hard she cried. I said, "That sounds like me." She said, "For what it is worth, sometimes doing the right thing looks like the wrong thing to the wrong people." I said, "I will remember that." On my way out, an older man wearing a veteran's hat stopped me. He said, "Son, sometimes peace is not a place you go, but a room you build. Looks like you are building it." I said, "I am trying." On a Sunday afternoon, I walked along the Cumberland River and sat on a bench near a family tossing a ball back and forth. I did not think about Nicole. I did not think about Deshawn. I thought about the quiet, about waking up each morning and knowing what was mine and what was not. A jogger stopped to tie her shoe, then glanced over and said, "Do you mind if I sit for a minute?" I said, "Go ahead." She said, "I am Elise. Just moved here from Charlotte. This city feels kinder than I expected." I said, "I am Raymond. It is kind if you let it be." We talked about food trucks and live music and which coffee shop had the best pour over. She said, "It is nice talking without anyone checking their phone every 30 seconds. I said, "It is." She said, "Maybe I will see you around." I said, "Maybe you will." She jogged away, and I watched the sunlight slide across the water. At work, Maurice pulled me into a conference room after a busy morning. He said, "You have been steady. I respect that." I said, "Thank you." He said, "A position is opening in vendor relations. It is more pay and fewer spreadsheets. Might be a good fit." I said, "I appreciate the consideration." He said, "Take the weekend. Think on it." I said, "I will." Outside, Anthony said, "Look at you, leveling up." I said, "If I take it, it is because I earned it." He said, "That is exactly why you should take it." One night, I got a voicemail from Denise. She said, "I am not calling to defend Nicole. I'm calling to apologize to you. You were good to her. You were good to us. I do not expect anything, but I needed to say that." I called her back. I said, "Thank you for saying it." She said, "Reginald told me what he said when he visited you. He meant it." I said, "I know." She said, "We are praying for you, for peace." I said, "I appreciate that." After I hung up, I sat on the couch with the window open and listened to the sounds of a quiet street, distant laughter, a barking dog, the hum of a neighbor's air conditioner. It did not feel lonely. It felt like breathing after holding my breath for too long. A few weeks later, I was at a gas station when Deshawn pulled in across the lot. I recognized him immediately. He looked around, saw me, and paused like he was deciding whether to walk over or not. He finally did. He said, "Raymond." I said, "Deshawn." He said, "I did not reach out before because, well, it seemed like you were handling things." I said I was. He said, "For what it's worth, I did not think she would post that. It was supposed to be private." I said, "Then you should have told her that." You should have told her a lot of things. He said, she and I are not talking. I said, I am not surprised. He said, I am not the man you think I am. I said, I do not think about you at all. He blinked, shoved his hands in his pockets, and walked back to his car without another word. On a warm Friday night, Khalil and I sat at a small bar on the east side. A guitarist was in the corner playing old soul covers. A couple danced near the door, swaying close, and the bartender slid a bowl of roasted peanuts toward us without asking. Khalil said, say you had to summarize the lesson. What would it be? I said, respect is not negotiable. If someone shows you they do not respect you, believe them and act accordingly. He said, that is not just a lesson. That is a code. I said, maybe so. He said, do you ever miss her? I said, I miss the idea of what we were supposed to be. But the actual person she chose to be? No. He nodded. He said, I am proud of you. I said, I know. As summer pressed in, my house settled into a new rhythm. Morning coffee on the porch, work, gym, dinner with friends here and there, a church service on Sunday when I felt like being around people, quiet evenings when I did not. The posts people had shared about me faded into the background noise of the internet, replaced by new stories and new dramas. Every now and then, someone would message to say, your story helped me make a hard decision. I would write back, I'm glad you found the strength. And that was all. On the day my promotion was finalized, I walked out of the building into late afternoon sunlight and called Khalil. I said, vendor relations. It is official. He said, drinks tonight? I said, come by the house. I will throw something on the grill. He said, you became that guy, the one who always is charcoal ready. I said, peace tastes better with smoke. He laughed. When he arrived, he glanced at the living room and said, you did all this yourself? I said, every bit, piece by piece. He said, looks good. We ate on the porch, and when the streetlights flickered on, he said, you know, people still quote you sometimes. I said, what line? He said, you know which line? I said, I never meant it as a slogan. I meant it as the truth. Truth has a way of simplifying a life. She chose him. I chose myself. That was the beginning and the ending. I did not beg. I did not negotiate with disrespect. I did not argue with someone else's fantasy. I gathered the facts, made my choices, and accepted the cost. When the dust settled, I was not broken. I was whole. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.